that we have with us someone who's going to not only talk to us about the comprehensive immigration reform bills that's in the Senate, which, by the way, is supposed to be taken up starting next week. And what we're hearing is that they hope to have a bill passed out of the Senate by the 4th of July. Boy, would that be a great celebration. Luis is a part of the Gang of 8 that is working on the House bill. It has not been dropped. We'd love to hear your take on when that will be dropped, and most importantly, what the comparison of the Senate version and the House version, and ultimately what you want to achieve. So without further ado, I introduce to you Congressman Luis Gutierrez.
It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you all for gathering. Hopefully this will be a very informative session that will help as you go about doing your work, educate the population that we certainly expect in the very near future will be able to benefit from our fight and our struggle. But first of all, I want to say, isn't it wonderful that we have such a dynamic and committed spokesperson for justice for immigrants in Congresswoman Terry Soul. I'm going to a conference in Puerto Rico. As many of you probably know, my parents are from Puerto Rico. It's a very important constituency back in my district in Chicago. And she left to go there. And when she was getting on a plane to go there, I was getting on a plane with Terry Soul.
Such commitment. He's going to be joining her on Saturday. Thank you.
And I'm going to be joining her Saturday. And I share that with you to say that that's how important Terry Soul is to me. And she should be that important to you. That we make commitments and we keep them with people. I remember many of you were there, because I see faces that I remember when we all gathered at the church across the street, when we were all fighting the ugly, xenophobic, Alabama anti-immigrant legislation. 11 members of Congress came that day. And you know what? And I know she said, yes, she had to do it. She said she had to do it. She had to do it because that's her commitment to social justice. That's why she felt she had to do it.
It was nice not to stand alone, right?
But many people would not have done what you did, Terry Soul. I see many members of Congress walk away. They write a memo, they sign on to a declaration, and they do not more. You have done more. So first of all, I wanted to share that with you this afternoon. Secondly, I think we're headed in the right direction in the Senate. There were many compromises that needed to be made. The sibling category is basically devastated in the Senate proposal. That is, brothers and sisters. It's going to be very difficult to get them in the future. Now they're going to start a point system that my mom and dad would not have been able to come to the United States under that point system. They would have been ineligible. For diversity's sake, there are 50,000 visas, they're gone. We're working to restore some of those visas. And indeed, they have restored some of them. I mean, undocumented immigrants will be allowed to, under the Senate, will be allowed to come forward and register for the government, but they will pay their back taxes, and they will pay every cent of taxes for the next 10 years and be ineligible for any programs that those taxes support, including health care. I mean, the first thing we did in the Senate version was to exclude them from any of the subsidies under Obamacare, and as everybody knows, that's like saying, here's a car, but we're not going to give you any gasoline to run it. The subsidies is what runs healthcare. So we're going to have to figure that out. I tell you all of that to say there are compromises that have been made in order to bring the 11 million out of the shadows in order to reunite. 1,400 people will be deported today. 1,400 will be deported tomorrow. Over 400,000 will be deported this year. And what we're working with Congressman Soul in the House is to find a way that the Senate wasn't able to find for those that have been deported to come back and be reunified with their loved ones. That is to say, how do you really have comprehensive immigration reform if you have hundreds of thousands of moms and dads who are going to be permanently separated because there is no vehicle in the law to reunite them with their American citizen children and their legalized spouses and families here in the United States. We think that is something worth fighting for, and that is something we're struggling with our House Republican colleagues now that the Senate has concluded its work. What else? We do have a wonderful pathway for the Dreamers. We do have a wonderful pathway for agricultural workers. I don't remember exactly what the Senate, but in the House version, I'll give you a little. In the House version, agricultural workers go to permanent residency after 5 years. And in the House version, the Dreamers go to permanent residency after 2 years, not 5 years like in the Senate. But there will be other things, and there will be triggers that are in the Senate, and there will be triggers. And what is it? I want everybody to understand what that is. What that means is you don't pass to American citizenship, and or the program may end if you do not meet certain expectations of enforcement. So if you don't have an E-Verify system, you will jeopardize the ability of people to legalize. If you don't quote-unquote secure the border, you won't have the ability to legalize. So we want to make sure that they're achievable. We think in the Senate they are. We also want to make sure that they're achievable in the House version, because if we don't want it to be for naught, to create a program and to create expectations and then people not be able to achieve. I will share with everybody here this morning that we lost a very important part of our coalition in the House of Representatives. Important because Raul Labrador is a Tea Party favorite, and they are the majority in the House of Representatives. He's no longer part of our bipartisan group. He's going to draft his own legislation. We still have a bipartisan group, but we want to make sure that that bipartisan group is meaningful. Why do I say that? Because I have made concessions as part of reaching an agreement with Republicans. And I want to make sure that I got more than 3 Republicans that have signed on. Because why should I make all of these concessions if we're not going to have a majority of their party embrace the ultimate legislation? So that's a very important stepping stone in this process. Now, what do I feel? I feel that not this week, but probably the next week, Congressman Sewell and the world will be able to see, and all of you, because we'll put it on the internet and you'll get it, and we'll show you our proposal. And I think you're going to like a lot of things that are in the proposal, because while there are things that are harsher when it comes to the ability to legalize, there are things that are broader in the sense of who can legalize and how families are reunited. So it's just, remember, the Senate did its version, we did our version, we never spoke to one another. Those Democratic senators are not going to, we're kind of beneath them in the House of Representatives for them to come and talk to us. But you know, it's good because, you know, I like to see everybody getting religion all of a sudden. Many of you never heard of many of the people that are part of comprehensive immigration reform today, but it's good because they're necessary. In the House of Representatives, it's a little different, right? Republicans are the majority. It's a much more conservative majority than the one that exists in the Senate. And so it's going to be a more difficult. But what do I feel? And I want you to understand. You have to continue to make the demand that Washington, D.C. act, and that Washington, D.C. act to bring you justice and fairness in this comprehensive immigration policy. Congressman Sewell and I, we need you more than ever to be raising your voices. We don't need you to be sitting back and waiting for, this is not like where you see your athletes go out on the field and, no. We need you to be the players in this. You are the most important one. Nothing happens in Washington, D.C., and this place is a monument. Nothing happens in Washington, D.C. without a consistent and persistent demand from outside of Washington, D.C. for action. And if any state understands that, given its civil rights history, it's the state of Alabama. And so we need to recreate that fight and that struggle. As women, as black people in this country fought for their rights, as workers and labor unions fought for rights for workers, and every struggle, there has been a constant, persistent demand from outside of Washington, D.C. to make it achievable. I want to take most of the time here this morning to be able to share with you some of the questions you might have about how. But one of the things that Congresswoman So asked me yesterday, she said, Luis, we were talking after, she said, Luis, you know, I'm happy you're here. It's going to be very informative tomorrow, but I really want you to come back once the legislation is passed. We're being optimistic that it will be passed. I assure you that we will come back, and I will come back to the conference. Because it will be very important. Just like there are new actors in comprehensive immigration reform that we hadn't heard before, that we welcome, we may be coming to the scene people we don't want to welcome when comprehensive immigration reform. The vultures and the people who want to prey on people's false expectations and to charge them a fortune to get what I believe we're going to be able to do in a fashion that really, that our community. But let me just tell you one thing. You have to get ready to fight today. But the fight isn't going to end the day the president signs that legislation. Let me tell you that next you have to be ready and committed. It's almost like think of you planted the seeds and you watered, right? And you did everything right to make sure, and now you have to harvest. And let me tell you, for those who have worked the fields, it's hard work out there in the fields. Ask anybody who's worked in agriculture. It's going to be hard work in order. But we can't leave anybody behind in that process. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I want to make sure that you understand that this is part of a process. We're here today, we'll answer questions, we'll go back and fight. We need you to come to Washington, D.C. We need you to fight. We need you to continue to raise your voices. And then we need to continue to come back, because the fight is not over with everybody. There will be those politicians in Washington, D.C. who will put the pens up on their walls and the placards up on their walls and the headlines up on their walls so that everybody to see. And then there will be those of us like you in this room who I know are committed to getting this done. And congresswomen like Terry Sewell who are going to want to make sure that the maximum number of people benefit from the proposal. I want to take a seat because I want to see what questions, concerns you have, because I think that that would be a better way and a more useful time. This is definitely my third time here to Birmingham, but I'll come as many times as you feel is necessary, because it's the 50 states of the United States. It's not just LA and New York and Miami and Chicago. No, it's Alabama too.